Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Super Bowl review. I'm your host, Brian Mansell, and I'm joined today by Katarina Cordero, the fan of the losing side, the Kansas City Chiefs. Today, we're going to talk to you guys about, what happened at Super Bowl 55, why the Chiefs lost, why the Bucs won, and more importantly, issues involving maybe refereeing, and at the end, a special message we have for the NFL and for all the hard work they've done this year. Katarina, it's been 2 weeks. How are you feeling?
Brian, I've been suppressing my emotions. I've had time to reflect on what happened. And I think now I'm coming to the realization as to what happened. You could argue there were many things that the Chiefs had on and off the field issues compared to the Bucs. I will say the Bucs were more focused in this Super Bowl. We saw it in the offense and defense and coaching. So that's one thing for me. Another thing is hours before the Super Bowl, we hear that quarterback Patrick Mahomes is going to need toe surgery after the Super Bowl. So I was like, oh dear, because if you know Mahomes is running. And even with that injury, I have to say, I got to give him credit. He ran 497 yards. And yes, Bucs fans, you will probably say that most of it was running away from the defense, but still it was admirable that he was able to run all of that with his injury. And he was the first quarterback in Super Bowl history to do so. Brian, what do you think my boys did wrong?
You know what? I think it's important that we actually go over a quick recap of the game. So, Chiefs Buccaneers, it started out with the Chiefs taking a 3-0 lead. All of a sudden, that first touchdown to Gronk on that huge touchdown drive from Tom Brady, that really turned the tables. And from there, Chiefs could never catch up or keep up. Now, you can attribute that to questionable calls and penalties on the Chiefs against the Chiefs. But, at the end of the day, the Chiefs finished with 11 penalties. Bucs had 4 penalties. Bucs ended up holding on to that lead all game, finished up 31-9 over the Chiefs, 22-point margin victory to earn their second Super Bowl in franchise history. So, knowing all of this, the question now becomes, Katarina, how come the Chiefs, lost this game?
Brian, I've been thinking that question too. And there were a lot of factors that ended up coming in. I'm going to start by saying of the teammates that were not here on the O-line. I'm going to start with the O-line because we saw Mahomes struggling to try to even get past the Bucs defense. Bucs are great in defense. I will say that. And I admit it. Compared to the Chiefs, they were the better defense. But I think the loss of Eric Fisher, that was a big loss because we had to change several positions in this game. There were several, we had to move players around the field. And then there was also the loss of one of the players who opted out this season for such valuable reasons to be a doctor on the front lines for the COVID-19. And with him being gone, I feel that was another issue that we suffered with because Dr. Lauren Duvernay-Tariff not being there, at least if Eric Fisher was not there, but he was there, I think this could have been a different game.
So you're attributing it more to the offensive line.
I am, because your job is to protect your quarterback. And you couldn't do that. And we saw Mahomes struggle. I'm not blaming this on Mahomes. He did his best. So I'm blaming this on the O-line. And we'll get into it later, on defense as well, what happened with all those penalties. But that's for much later in this video. But yes, that's what I just want to present for right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you completely. I think one of the big things, especially, is seeing how that reflected on his stats. Because, finishing with 26 completion on, 49 passes, and then only having 2 interceptions, not even scoring a touchdown. The Chiefs, with that amazing offense, not scoring a single touchdown all game, that's actually kind of shocking to most people. Defense held up very much for the Bucs, and I think that's one of the reasons why the Bucs win. Because now I'm going to jump straight into that. The Buccaneers won because of one thing. People like to give a lot of credit to Tom Brady, want to give a lot of credit to that offense itself. But what we're not giving enough credit to is that defense. You know what? Forget giving the Super Bowl MVP to Tom Brady, although he had a phenomenal game statistically. Give it to Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He spent all year getting this young group of guys together to stand up and take down these defenses. You know what they call themselves? The grave diggers. Why? Because they know that if they're going to take you on, they're going to bury you and you're not coming back. And let me tell you, that defense proved to be formidable. The amount of sacks, the amount of pressure that they got on Mahomes, And not to mention the 2 interceptions, one of them being clutch at the end when Devin White got that pick on that throw to the end zone. That was really what sealed the game for the Bucs, just like when Derek Brooks made that pick back at Super Bowl 37 against the Raiders. At the end of the day here, the Buccaneers won solely because of defense, no matter how well the offense played. If the defense couldn't figure out a way to shut down Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Patrick Mahomes, they would not have won this game. And I'm being completely honest.
I have to agree with you, even though I did support the Chiefs. I will forever support the Chiefs on that. Yes, we saw Devin White and Levante David. They were able to hold Travis Kelce, and that's such a hard thing to do. And then the moment Travis Kelce gets lost, he gets out of their hold, he drops a crucial ball in 3rd down towards Kansas City territory. And once that happened, I just sunk back in my sofa and I'm like, oh, that's it. Bucs are going to win. And there were areas where your defense did persevere. I agree with you. Yes, you have Tom Brady. It is very amazing what he has done. He is in his 40s and he just won his 7th Super Bowl ring. But honestly, I cannot say that it was because of the offense line either. You were able to take away this young 25-year-old quarterback from making a touchdown. This has never happened in the Kansas City Chiefs dynasty of Coach Reed and Mahomes, that they never score a touchdown. I thought this Super Bowl, it was going to be all about the kickers. I said that previously. I did not literally think it was going to be the only way that the Chiefs were going to score in this game.
Absolutely. I think our defense was a big crucial point in this game for Tampa Bay. And you look at the secondary most to me, because Antoine Winfield, the rookie out of Minnesota, the 2nd-round pick, has been playing beyond what anybody expected of him. Easily was in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year, and it showed during that game. His ability to cover Tyreek Hill downfield and keep up with him was second to none. It was an amazing effort to see that. But another narrative I'm going to add in there just real quick before we move on is the drop passes. When you mentioned that Kelce drop pass, it reminded me of about maybe 5-6 different passes that were thrown from Mahomes that were dropped by his receivers. Tyreek Hill dropped a few that were easy for him. I know I saw a really bad drop when he had the sideways pass. When he was laying on his side, getting sacked, got the ball down 30 yards downfield, and it bounced off the face mask of his receiver. To be fair, Devin White's hands were on it, so he thought it was going to get picked. But nevertheless, it hit you in the face mask, got to be caught. And I think that was a big narrative too. He was under so much pressure, and the receivers didn't know what to do, didn't know what to expect. And that shock factor, I think, took that into account. So I think that's a huge part of it as well. Drop passes were a huge reason why they lost. But let's look now at another thing that you brought up, the refs. Again, Kansas City had 11 penalties that cost them over 100 yards, and the Buccaneers only had 4. Now, in the first half, there were so many penalties against the Chiefs that people started to think it was rigged, especially with a couple plays, including the tug on Mike Evans when he was trying to make a crossing route, and he was grabbed by the Kansas City receiver. That was called a holding. That gave Bucs another first down. They kept getting bailed out by penalties when they should have been off the field. And everybody knows when you're playing Brady, you don't want to do that. So
I agree.
The biggest one that shocked everybody was, the Tyrann Mathieu penalty in the end zone that set up the Antonio Brown's touchdown 21-6 lead at the end of the first half. Because at that point, people were kind of shocked. They didn't know what to do because they were convinced at that point that that wasn't pass interference and that they should have let the play keep going. They shouldn't have got the penalty. And that's when they thought it was rigged. So your opinion specifically, try not to have bias here since you're a Chiefs fan. Do you think the game was rigged for Brady?
I mean, I don't want to put any accusations out there. I cannot afford an NFL lawsuit. But personally, some of these flags, they were ridiculous. I agree. Like, come on, like some of these holding ones. I'm like, you could go back to the playoffs. The same thing was happening, and there was no penalty of that. So I think that already was horrible as it is. You referenced the Tyrann Mathieu penalty, and I thought that was, ridiculous. There's certain things That you got to be kidding me. That was a clear interception that could have honestly turned around the game for the Chiefs if they got that. But yeah, that was just, it was ridiculous. It cost us 120 yards. And like you said, playing against Brady, I've always said it. You cannot give Brady the ball. You give Brady the ball, he's going to do something with it. And that's what these penalties did. They gave Brady an advantage and they gave the Bucs an advantage. So you guys got more minutes because of that. And it was just honestly some silly things that were done. There wasn't much focus. I believe that the Chiefs, that was a prime example. The Chiefs were sloppy in that sense. I hate to say it, but it was sloppy, and your Bucs, they did not. They knew what was at stake. I don't think the Chiefs really were coming in as, oh yes, we're the reigning champions. I'll be honest, I came in like that too, but I don't think they knew really what was going to happen with this. And I think really it was just really absurd to have as many 11 flags during this game.
So we're not saying here that it was rigged. We're saying that there were a lot of questionable calls that could point to that.
Yes. I will never say, I'm not going to make an accusation like that about riggedness.
Of course. And I'm going to agree with you that there were a couple questionable calls, but I'm also going to excuse it based on one thing. The officiating staff they used called, I believe, the fourth most holding calls, if not the most, out of all officiating crews in the NFL this year, which says a lot, which means they play and nitpick the rule book, which means if something even seems slight, maybe a slight little tug, they're going to call it. And I think that is where the issue lies, because they focused on, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but Sarah Thomas, it's amazing the accomplishment she got, becoming the first female referee in the NFL to officiate a Super Bowl. And that is phenomenal. But seeing how the officiating was, knowing how the officiating for the entire crew as a whole was inefficient, inconsistent, and strict nitpicking that could really be seen as controversial, that shouldn't make the officiating crew eligible for the Super Bowl. Because it's like they prioritize history over performance. And I know it may sound wrong to say, but I would have rather they went with the crew that was proven, that had, isn't afraid to make those tough calls when they're blatantly obvious and willing to let the soft stuff go that seems a little touchy. And that was the issue here, I think, that happened. They picked the wrong officiating crew to ref the game. That's all it is. I think that's all it stands by, and that's all I'm going to stand by, at least in my input here. Do you agree?
Yeah, I respect your opinion on that. Yes, definitely. I mean, it was a big moment, Sarah Thomas, to be there, and especially women, the amount of women that were part of the Super Bowl this year was just phenomenal. But yeah, it just comes down, that's the refs that they picked. That's who they picked. And, you got to respect that. And the game turned out how it did. Yeah, it didn't come out in the favor I would have preferred, but that's how it ended up playing. And yes, we could go on, and I believe for years we're going to go on talking about this game and about the penalties that happened against the Chiefs and how it led to the Bucs victory. But, it is what it is right now.
Absolutely. I completely agree. We could argue this as much as we want. But at the end of the day, I don't believe those calls would have resulted in a different outcome. I think the Chiefs were defeated by the end of that first half. They came out in the second half with that field goal, but I think it was long over before that. And it's sad to say, but yes, I think that was the case, and I feel like you could agree that those calls wouldn't have changed much.
After the first half, when we were down 21-6, in my head, I'm like, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, they play as the underdogs of the game. That's how they do. They're always leading behind, and then they do this big comeback. And we could look back for years and years seeing, the records passed. But what happened, they did not catch up. They didn't just do their comeback,
Absolutely. And I think that's all it comes down to at the end of the day, is just no matter what happened, it was going to have the same outcome, whether it was going to be 22-point margin blowout or it was going to be a close 3-point victory. Tampa was still going to come out on top, unfortunately. Now, before we end this Super Bowl review officially, we want to give a quick thank you message out to the NFL for what they've done this season. I mean, even throughout this pandemic, people question if the NFL was going to be able to pull off what they did and even get a full season in. Despite some postponements and rescheduling of games due to COVID issues, the NFL never had to cancel a game. They never had to cancel one game. And I think that is an impressive feat. They played every single game that they had on their schedule. Yes, a couple COVID scares, close contact scares happened, but that was expected to happen. And I think at the end of the day, we should be grateful for what the NFL did and all the efforts they took to make this season happen and give the fans somewhat of the same experience they would get in a regular environment, despite not being at the stadiums. So we just want to give a quick thank you to the NFL and everyone involved up there at the executive offices for making this happen. It made our year, especially mine, getting to see my team take home a second Super Bowl. Thank you so much.
I agree. I have to thank the NFL as well. Even though there were games that, that weren't fans, it was dead quiet. We did get the experience. We did watch every game. Honestly, I would love to implement Tuesday games. I feel like they were great, even though they were used because of COVID protocols. We had great moments. We had the Hail Murray. We could even go, there were some crazy plays throughout the entire year. I feel, we at least got, with everything going on right now in the world, we got like those little moments just to watch football, and it just felt normal again. So yes, thank you, NFL, continuing making it safe and giving us just time. But do you know what, Brian? There's always next season. And do you know what's even better? The comeback's always better.
Always. I saw Mahomes' reaction. He's coming back with a vengeance next year. And you know what? I think every NFL team, especially the AFC, should be afraid. But with that, that's going to do it for us here with the Super Bowl review today. I'm your host, Brian Mansell, joined by longtime Chiefs fan, I think, Katarina Cordero.
Exposure, Brian.
Before we close it out, though, just one question. Do you think the Chiefs will be back in the Super Bowl next year?
Oh, 100%. We're going to be back in the Super Bowl. We're going to win a ring in the Super Bowl. Because let me tell you, we got Mahomes is coming back. Kelsey's coming back. They're on vacation. They are resting right now. But do you know what? They're going to come back to training. They're going to work harder, and they're going to prove Tampa Bay fans and the NFL who's the best team in the league.
I agree. I think they will be back, barring any setbacks. But I'm not going to put that out there. They have a really good chance of making the Super Bowl again next year. And I think Tampa does too. No matter what's lost in free agency, no matter what setbacks we may face, this team has proven that adversity will never stop them, and they know how to win. And they've shown NFL fans that, especially when you've got Tom Brady on your side. So I expect us to be back next year as well.
Okay.
Again, that will do it for us here at the Super Bowl review. We will see you soon with the new sports episode coming soon. But until then, have a great day.
Bye, everyone.